Welcome, friends, to this latest episode of The Nationalist View. And we have with us our very special guest, Dr. Michael Barak, today. Dr. Barak, thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule.
Thanks for inviting me.
Michael Barak is a senior researcher at the Institute for Counter-Terrorism of Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy at Reichman University, Herzliya in Israel. And he also serves as the team leader of the Global Jihad and Jihadi Websites Monitoring Group. He's an expert in Arabic. He teaches several university courses in Arabic. And apart from that, he has also served as a researcher and member of the Social Media Networks in the World, Beehive Research Board at the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies in Tel Aviv University. So we are going to talk with Dr. Barak about the latest state of affairs in Israel, especially in context of its ongoing conflict with Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, and what is the state of affairs as far as the state of release of hostages is concerned. So my first question to you, Dr. Barak, is that we have seen of late US seem to be warming up to Hamas. At least this is the indication which we are getting from the news reports. Also, I was reading that Al Jazeera has reported that after the release of the last Israeli American, Jewish American hostage by Hamas, so now Israel is also planning to send its representatives to Qatar to have a discussion with Hamas. So, if you could clear for our viewers that what is the state of affairs and how you are looking, especially towards the relationship between US and Hamas, because US has been your steadfast ally in this fight against terrorism.
So the Donald Trump administration is interested to put an end for the war in Gaza. So he's trying to use other pressure leverage on Israel, like the release of the last hostage, which who has also American nationalism, was used by Trump to open a negotiation with Hamas to release him. Again, the Donald Trump administrations, as I see it, has more. Of course, it's very important for him to keep on the alliance with Israel and to cultivate the power of Israel, but he has also a business point of view. Like he has a vision to develop Gaza in the day after that Hamas will be disarmed, and so that's why we see that his first visit was also in Saudi Arabia. We see that there was a huge a business agreement that Saudi Arabia will invest in United States in exchange of civilian nuclear. But again, Donald Trump, I think he's a little bit frustrated that the war is not ends in Gaza. So he's trying other channels to end it, but I don't. Let's say that there are some rumors or some speculations that the coordination between the United States to Israel were damaged, but this is not true. There is still a strong coordination and strong cooperation. But again, Trump is trying also other channels to end the war in Gaza, but he also. But there is a kind of coordination, maybe not in this case with the Israeli hostage that has also American citizenship, but still there is a coordination.
So how do you look at I'll go beyond this thing now. How do you look at Turkey? Turkey has positioned itself in the Israel-Hamas war in a certain way. It has of course been supporting Hamas. It is becoming the rallying point of jihadists uh, all over the region, and not only this thing, even in South Asia we have seen, because in the recent India-Pakistan war it was backing the it was backing this Pakistan. But we'll leave South Asia right now. This thing. So, what are the implications of this? Turkey's role, especially we have seen in Syria. It is now pushing back against the existing regime, the Turkish backed Islamists. So they are now kind of fighting a war against the existing Syrian leadership there. And Israel also had an issue with the existing Syrian leadership because he is a former Al Qaeda. He has spent time in prison in US, and now US seems to be lifting sanctions on this current Syrian, jihadist government. That's one viewpoint, and then Turkey comes into play. So, if you could, elaborate a little bit for our viewers, that what is Turkey's, how Israel looks at Turkey right now?
Okay, this is a huge question. I will try to divide it. Uh, Again, let's say that Erdogan has a vision which he emphasized on October 2022. It's called the Century Vision of Turkey. Erdogan said very clearly that he predicts and wants to cultivate the status of Turkey in the world. He wants that Turkey will be in the near future one of the 10 leading superpowers in the world in every aspect: military, economic, science, education. And also, he sees Turkey playing a major role in supporting other Muslim states, especially if they are in confront with other states. So, for example, now in the recent escalation between Pakistan to India, Turkey supplied the drones to Pakistan. Turkey has a strong alliance with Pakistan. We see also in the Pakistani discourse that they praise Turkey contribution and China and also Azerbaijan to the efforts of Pakistan to stand against India. But Erdogan is not helping only to Pakistan. Erdogan is also helping to the Palestinians, mostly Hamas, and also he's involved in the Libyan civil war. Also, he helped to Muhammad al-Julani in Syria. He has a vision to Islamize the region, especially the Middle East, in some case, also the Central Asia. And this thing he is like for 20 years almost that he's in power. He's been using Ottoman motives and Islamic motives. If you so it indicates all the time wars from the past in order to glorify the Turkish and Ottoman legacy. For example, the fight of 1071, the Manzikert war. This was a war between the Seljuks, the fathers of the Turks, against the Byzantine Empire. This was a huge victory for the Seljuks, and this fight opened the gates to the Turks, the Seljuks, to conquer the Anatolia region. And in August 2024, and also a year before that, and 2 years before that, Erdogan has been celebrating this event, the Manzikert War, in order, and also he sent clues that in the far future, in 2073, Turkey will be in another place, in other war, and he said that he wants that the young generation will restore the spirit that was on one of the war, 1073. In other words, this is a clue or a hint that he predicts that Islam will conquer some of West Europe, like the Seljuks managed to defeat the power of the Byzantine Empire. So Erdogan, if we talk about the Palestinian issue, Erdogan perceive himself as the protector, defender of the Palestinians, and this is not something new, or it's not a secret that Erdogan is been cultivating his ties with Hamas. We say that Hamas is a guest, a welcome guest in his palace. There was also part of the Hamas military wing, also still is sitting in Ankara and in Istanbul, trying to escalate from Turkey the situation in the West Bank in Israel. And by the way, there are also there is a huge, extensive network of the Muslim Brotherhood inside Turkey. If it's a Muslim Brotherhood from Yemen, from Libya, from Jordan, and other places. And this network is also promoting propaganda against not only Israel, but also against Muslim rulers. For example, against the Egyptian ruler Sisi, Abd al-Fattah al-Sisi. There is a very extremist group that belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood that sits in Turkey, which is called the Current of Change. The Current of Change, Tayar never mind what is the name in Arabic, but this is a very extremist radical faction inside the Muslim Brotherhood that calls for a continuation of a very violent revolution against the regime of Abd al-Fattah al-Sisi. And we know that there is, in the last 2 years, there are like discussions between Turkey and Egypt in trying to reconcile between themselves to make sulha, like to reach to a peace, because there was a tension between Turkish regime to the regime of Egypt since 2013, when Abd al-Fattah al-Sisi managed to get power by a military revolution, a military coup, and to expel the Muslim Brotherhood from the rule and to outlaw the Muslim Brotherhood activity in Egypt. But in the last 2 years, there was a process of reconciliation between Turkey and Egypt. But in the same time, Erdogan is permitting to this extremist Muslim Brotherhood faction in Turkey to incite against the Egyptian rule. And there are some Muslim Brotherhood who are also delivering money from Turkey to Hamas by presenting that this is a kind of under the mask of humanitarian assistance. So Erdogan has been since 7th of October. We know that the relations between Turkey and Israel were very good before Erdogan, but from 2000, I think, and 2008, something like that, things became a little bit tensioned. And when the Abraham Accords were signed between Israel, peace between Israel to UAE and Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, Erdogan realized that he has to change his attitude to Israel, and he began a reconciliation with Israel because he wanted to be part of economic agreements that were signed between Israel to the Abraham Accords states. But when the 7th of October, the massacre of Hamas against citizens in Israel happened, then Erdogan got back to his attitude, hostile attitude against Israel. He was not only condemned, he did not condemn Hamas for committing this massacre, and he also accused and blamed Israel for alleged genocide. While Israel had to cope with the issue of hostages and missiles, rockets from Gaza to cities in Israel. And instead of condemning Hamas, he praised Hamas and justified 7th of October. This is and in that way, Erdogan exposed that his real attitude was pro-Hamas. And he also gave shelter, as I mentioned, to the Muslim Brotherhood. And by the way, there is also a lot of Qatari money that is being sent from Qatar to the Muslim Brotherhood in Turkey, and also to Erdogan himself. And in this money is used to also to fuel the propaganda against Israel and to empower the Muslim Brotherhood networks in Turkey. By the way, there is also, for example, there is a professor for mathematics. His name is Sami Aryan, Professor Sami Aryan. He was a citizen of United States for a long time, and he belonged to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and he sent money to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad to commit suicide attacks in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in the 90s. And the FBI in the United States discovered that he was funding this terrorist organization, the PIJ, and there was a trial for 10 years against him, against Sami Aryan. United States could not prove that he was 100% guilty, so eventually after 10 years, United States expelled Professor Sami Aryan, and surprisingly, where he was expelled to, where he found shelter, in Turkey. In Turkey, the Erdogan regime gave him a very extensive budget to open a research institution in Azaim University in Ankara. And from this institution, research institution allegedly, Sami Aryan has been hosting Hamas members during the COVID-19. He also conducted podcasts with Hamas members like Marzouk, and he also has contacts with Muslim Brotherhood in India, especially in Kerala. There is also, he's trying also to disseminate the Israeli-Palestinian conflict among also the Muslim Brotherhood in Kerala. We know that after 7th of October, Khaled Mashal, the prominent leader inside the political bureau in Hamas, gave a lecture in Zoom, I don't know, in Zoom or other platform, among
Yeah, it's an
Muslims in
online page.
Kerala.
Yeah, in Kerala, yes, yes.
Yeah, so he gave this speech, and this is something that again, the Professor Sami Aryan is like he is trying to intensify the incitement against Israel by also using Muslim Brotherhood in Kerala, unfortunately. So Erdogan is giving shelter to those radicals. Erdogan is also using anti-Israeli rhetoric. Erdogan also ordered to stop any commercial trade links with Israel. And you mentioned Syria. Erdogan also is trying to build soft power or to have regimes, pro-Turkish regimes in the region. Now he thinks that Muhammad al-Julani is the one to supply the merchandise. What I mean that he thinks that Muhammad al-Julani will act on base of Erdogan vision and instructions. Erdogan is trying to do the same in Libya. And by the way, I have not mentioned that Erdogan is also is also fulfilling the ideology of two ideologies. One is the strategic debt that Ahmad Davutoglu, the foreign minister of Turkey, wrote. What does it mean? This was published in 2001. Erdogan, Ahmad Davutoglu said that Turkey needs to cultivate its regional influence in the region by emphasizing its strategic depth. Because of Turkey is between two continents, Europe and Asia. So Ahmad Davutoglu said that Turkey has to exploit it in order to empower its influence in the region, to emphasize its Ottoman legacy, to emphasize the Islamic identity, to empower the links with superpowers like China and others. This is what called the zero problem strategy, which was not very successful, but Erdogan is following after that. Another ideology, another doctrine that Erdogan is following is Mavi Vatan, the blue homeland. What does it mean? Turkey wants, this was written in 2006 by one of the Turkish admirals in the maritime, in the Navy of Turkey. And this doctrine says that Turkey needs to empower and to intensify its maritime force. Today, Turkey is one of the leading maritime force in the region. And this doctrine spoke about the need to empower Turkey maritime force in the three seas, in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Aegean Sea, and in the Black Sea. But we see that this doctrine is not been implemented only in this region, but also in the Red Sea. Today, Erdogan has also a Turkish military in Somalia. Turkey is trying to empower itself over there. Turkey is trying to convince the Sudanese regime also to establish a maritime harbor over there. So Turkey has ambitions far from its region, not only the Middle East, but also in the African Horn, also Central Asia. It's also also soft power that is using in West Europe and other places. Now, regarding Syria, you asked about what are the relations between Syria to Israel based on Turkish influence. So again, we have to look. First of all, the regime of the new Syrian regime came to power thanks to the Turkish assistance, a huge one. There are many Turkish militias that admitted that say that without the Turkish assistance they could not achieve this victory on Bashar al-Assad regime. So now, if we look on Muhammad al-Julani, Ahmad al-Shara past history, we see that he changed his colors. Like he was changing his loyalties. Once he belonged to ISIS, then he belonged to Al Qaeda, then he became an independent jihadi faction called Fatah al Sham, and then he accepted to be under the influence of Erdogan. If we take this past based on that, it may change again its color if he will decide, if he will understand, as I see it, that Turkey is not serving the interest of the Syrian. Maybe he can change his attitude again and follow after the attempts of UAE and Saudi Arabia he will accept their involvement in Syria, because the UAE and Saudi Arabia, they are not interested that now that Syria will become another jihadist hub and will become a safe haven for radicals and jihadists. So the UAE and Saudi Arabia are trying, they want to invest in Syria, and this is a good thing, that because they may attract Muhammad al-Julani maybe to cooperate with them, and then he can minimize the influence of Turkey. Very recently, there were also indications, publications in the media, that the UAE was involved in mediating with the new Syrian regime of promoting normalization between Israel to the new Syrian regime. This is something that Erdogan doesn't like. Maybe this is the first indication that Ahmad Shara is trying to get a little bit far from Erdogan influence. But we should not forget that Muhammad al-Julani, the new Syrian regime, is not the only actor. Muhammad Julani is not the only actor in Syria. There are other people who surround him that they are pro-Turkish, pro-Turkey. For example, I also published an article about it, about the Turkmen militias that are strongly connected to the Turkey influence, and they were involved. They belong to the Syrian National Army. This entity was composed from 70,000 fighters, and they were assisted by the Defense Ministry of Turkey, and they were very active in the north of Turkey. They fought not only against ISIS or the Syrian regime, but also against the Kurds, SDF, Syrian Democratic Fighters. Not fighters, SDF. I don't remember the last. Okay, so now these Turkmen militias members have been integrated or combined inside the new Syrian regime, and they are very pro-Turkish, pro-Turkey, and if so, it's very difficult to estimate how they will behave if now Muhammad al-Julani, Ahmad al-Shara will try to do something that Turkey will not be satisfied, We have to remember that there are also other members in the new Syrian regimes that were active in ISIS in the past, in Al Qaeda. There are many Muslim Brotherhood who immigrated to Syria and have become members of the new Syrian regime. Uh, for now, we see that Muhammad al Julani, Ahmad Ashara, is been disseminating, how to say, peaceful. Uh, peaceful statements that he is not interested in escalation with Israel, that he wants to keep the status quo, that he doesn't have any intentions to damage Israel or to strike Israel. But who knows? No, this is Hamas also say that he was not interested to open an escalation, and then he surprised Israel. Israel has to be prepared for everything, but okay, but maybe he has a we can maybe we should believe him, but we should not take it in 100% guaranteed. There are still, according to the open sources and the media, there are still discussions between the new Syrian regime to Israel to promoting, I don't know, normalization. I don't know which kind of normalization, but to at least to reach to understanding that it's very important to keep on the stability of the region and also to keep on the safety of the Druzes in Syria. Israel also is not interested that the new regime in Syria will do a massacre or will strike the Druze as he did to the Alawites. So Israel has taken a kind of patronage, not patronage, but is taking an actions to defend the Druzes in Syria. And also, I think that these discussions between the new regime in Syria to Israel also involved the importance of keeping the safety of the Druzes in Syria. So right now, it's too early to estimate where the relations are going on, based on Turkey influence on the region. But for right now, it's fine. Like we don't see any escalation. But Turkey, of course, is trying to turn Syria into a Turkish colony, kind of colony, like was in the Ottoman Empire. Also, Erdogan said himself in 2012 that the reason that Syria was part of the Ottoman Empire, part of the Ottoman Empire. So they still thinks that those Arab provinces should be under the influence of Turkey. Syria, Libya, other places.
Uh, Dr. Barak, my last question is now we know that Turkey is under Erdogan has emerged as the fountainhead of Islamism and jihadism. And the world is looking at it, the world knows about it. Especially, I would like to talk about going ahead as a counterterrorism expert. What do you think uh, the rest of the world has to do to deal with this? Because, as you rightly mentioned, that is not only influencing developments in Middle East, but in South Asia, Africa, Central Asia. So the world is turning into a tinderbox because of Erdogan's dream of resetting or re-establishing the Ottoman Empire, a caliphate basically. So, and it is becoming a hub of Islamic terrorism. Now the West is looking at it. It continues to, interestingly, ironically, and sadly, I would say that Turkey continues to remain a member of NATO.
Hmm.
And it continues to, do all these things with the kind of no sanctions against it. It has a huge influential caucus in United States, uh, Senate and Congress. Because I spoke to Dr. Michael Rubin some time back, though its influence has decreased, but it still continues to hold an influence there. So why if I put it simply, aren't these double standards of the Western world, or why they are so oblivious of it? We are seeing what is happening in Europe, on the streets, what Islamists and jihadists are doing. So the pictures are all over there. So why the world is not acting upon it? Or if I say, in terms of affirmative action, Why? What needs to be done as we go ahead collectively to contain and to probably uh, manage this Turkey's growing influence or to counter this?
You correctly say that this is that some Western states are using double standards. Yes, this is a matter of interest. Uh, First of all, some of the Western states are not interested that Turkey will go with Russia or with China. So they are trying to keep Turkey in their side. For example, if you look not only Western states, but also some Eastern Europe states, they are more concerned with the Russian-Ukraine war. They don't now. They think that that Turkey should be a member of NATO because these serve their interest to also to be part of anti-Russian coalition. Uh, Secondly, there is also an interest mainly by United States that again that Turkey will not go with China, although there are cooperation between China to Turkey and Erdogan and Donald Trump also say that Erdogan is a very good friend of him. Also because he is not interested that now Turkey will go with China. Uh, Again, I think again Turkey. Um, it's a very important actor, a key player. I also I lived in Turkey for a time. I studied Turkish. I have also roots from Turkey. I think Turkey is very. There are good people over there. You saw the demonstrations against Erdogan. I think that if Erdogan will be replaced someday, maybe things can change for good for Turkey. I'm not talking about the region. I'm talking about the country itself of Turkey, because there are some people who are not in Turkey, very huge part of Turkey. They are not interested in the direction that Erdogan is taking Turkey to Islamization inside. You know that when I lived in Turkey. There was a prohibition of on the women not to get inside the universities while they were dressing hijab. Now Erdogan abolished it a long time ago. He abolished it. Now you can go inside. What I'm meaning is that Erdogan is trying to Islamize Turkey. The people of Turkey don't like it. Some of them, and maybe when Erdogan will be replaced, maybe things can change for good in the matter of the Turkish people, and then it's of course it can have many also maybe positive influence on the region. I don't know what will be. I cannot predict what can be after Erdogan, but it's a problem for NATO. That Erdogan is, for example, was trying also to achieve aircrafts from China from Russia, and this was opposed to the uh, policy of NATO and also the United States. But still, it's very important to the West to keep Turkey in their side. At least they think like that they keep Turkey, because Turkey is playing in all the baskets, putting the eggs in all the baskets, trying to enjoy from all the world to things that China, I don't know, other countries can serve the interest of Turkey. So right now, yes, I think this is a double standard, but you cannot break the rules. You cannot break the relations with Turkey because it has the right. Turkey has the right now to uh, cultivate ties with other states, but again, it's against the spirit, against the policy of its allies, Western allies, and but during the last years, Erdogan has been criticizing Western states like Germany, like Sweden, United Kingdom, and this is a huge problem. We have not talking about the soft power of Turkey. This is maybe for another podcast, but Erdogan, for example, in West Germany is also, in France, is trying to empower his force by using the Diyanet, the religious affairs body. But uh, what should be done? Yes, the NATO and the United States can demand from Erdogan, and also not only them, but also Egypt. Egypt is not doing nothing. nothing about, or maybe they are, and we are not aware to that, maybe below the radar, to demand from Erdogan not to give shelter for terrorists like Hamas or Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood radical factions that call to overthrow the regime of Abd el-Fattah al-Sisi, that Turkey should supply uh, proof that it's fighting against uh, terrorists, well, and not only in rhetoric, but also to expel them from Turkey, or at least to ban them from activity. But this is not happened. That it doesn't happen. I don't know. Time will tell.
So, Dr. Barak, thank you so much for bringing in such a great perspective. I think it was a very enriching discussion and the kind of perspective, overall perspective you gave. I think Turkey, if I sum it up, especially about Turkey, Turkey as such is not a problem. Turkey under Erdogan is basically becoming a problem. So the sooner Erdogan gets replaced by a relatively middle of the center party or a politician, so, and before he gets the whole Turkish society radicalized, I think it needs to be done sooner than later. Recently, he had jailed he started putting in prison his political rivals also, like the Istanbul mayor. He has been sent to prison. So I think the world needs to take a note of it, and just want to add a little bit of input before we end up, because if the West is thinking that Turkey will not go with, China or Russia, so in the India-Pakistan war, the Turkish and the Chinese, they were working in close collaboration, basically against India. And this is for the whole world to see, and especially the disinformation, apart from the arms on the ground, as they say, the Turkish drones, as you had mentioned, and the Chinese equipment. Apart from that, there is a huge disinformation campaign which was run in close coordination between Turkey's TRT, which is its media, official media arm, and the Chinese media arm Xinhua. So I'm also intending to write about it, and probably we'll have a greater discussion on China's on Turkey's media influence operation with you, because you specifically look after the jihadi websites also. And apart from that, Turkish drones have been deployed by Russia also. So we should not forget in the Ukraine-Russia war. So if the West wants to sleep over it, it can continue to sleep over it, and probably waiting for another 9/11 to happen. And this time it could be done from the Turkish this thing the Turkish jihadi playground which is being prepared. So thank you, Dr. Barak, once again, and thank you viewers for watching this. And we'll be back soon with another episode. And we'll also try to have Dr. Barak back. He's very busy, and of course, but we are grateful to him that he always takes out ample time for us from his busy schedule, and he gives this perspective, especially coming from the Middle East, this perspective, and especially for people in this part of the world in South Asia. So it gives you a 180-degree view about things, and so that we don't look at things in silos and have a overall holistic viewpoint. So thank you once again, Dr. Barak, and we're
You.
looking forward to have you again on the podcast.